Hey, what's up everybody? It's Christian here with Reaper Disc, and today I want to talk about one of the newest additions to the approach disc category and currently taking the market by storm, the Innova Toro. The Toro is an overstable approach disc coming in with flight numbers of 4, 2, 1, 3. That's right, I said a turn rating of 1, not -1, 1. This disc is really overstable and extremely resistant to turn. You're going to see that whenever we get into the flight of this disc here in a minute, but just suffice to say, this thing is beefy and it's good at what it does. The Toro is Innova's long-awaited entry into that true overstable approach disc category on the market, which has in recent years been really saturated with companies coming out left and right with their version of old stalwarts like the Harp or the Zone that have been around for decades and, dominated that side of the market. Players like, Ricky Wysocki with his Harp in the past, as well as more modern players like you're seeing Paul Macbeth with his Zone, just absolutely tearing up the courses. Players with Innova were begging for something like that, with other discs like the Pig and the Rhino getting used, but not necessarily what people wanted. When Innova worked together with Calvin Heimburg to come out with the Toro, they knocked it out of the park. They took what was seemingly, a saturated market and a category of discs that everyone has, pretty well already had and thought that they perfected, and they did what they do best, and they made it better. Now, the Toro is a pretty deep dish disc with a higher shoulder and extremely flat profile, even getting puddle top depending on the plastic type that you get. This thing never comes out really with any dome, except for some very rare occurrences. They're mostly all just absolutely board flat. That makes them really comfortable in the hand, especially looking for that, really niche forehand approach disc, which is what this disc was really geared toward. Now, we've kind of given a little background on it. Let's see just how it flies. When thrown on a stock hyzer release, this thing just wanted to hyzer. It fought really quickly to get back to the ground, and that really, really low glide factor of 2, this thing didn't really want to fly. It did what it was supposed to. It got out, it hyzered, it got back to the ground. Now, you'll note that a few videos back when I taught you guys how to range your approach discs, and if you haven't watched that video, definitely get over on the channel and check it out. It's a great video with a ton of very useful information. But the disc of choice that I used was the Toro for this exact reason. It doesn't have a ton of glide, so I know that whenever I repeat the same release with the same power, it's pretty well going to go the exact distance every single time. That's, known as ranging, and this disc is a ranging cheat code. It is extremely consistent, and because of that low glide, it's not going to, glide out on me or go further randomly than what I'm expecting it to. It goes exactly how far you throw it, and that's it. Now, when thrown flat, it flew flat and straight for a little bit before kicking in that fade again. This thing is extremely turn resistant, and we'll get into that just a little bit more in just a second, I promise. But even when thrown flat, it wants to start fading back to the left again, getting back over to that hyzer angle. It did fade a little slower at first before it got all the way over onto a hyzer angle and slowed down a little bit. The moment that happened, this thing dumped right back out of the sky, giving very little difference between this shot and just the stock hyzer shot. I think only just a couple, 4 feet difference between the two. Now, when thrown on anhyzer, this is where that +1 turn rating comes into play, and strikingly, blaringly so. As soon as I released this disc, it immediately started fighting back to fade again. This thing doesn't want to turn if you make it turn. Now, that is extremely useful. You can play with some pretty awesome flex shots utilizing that overstability and turn resistance. You can get it up on an anhyzer and know that it's going to fight back just as it did here. Now, if I put it on steeper anhyzer, obviously yes, it's going to hold it. If I put it on a near roller angle, unless I throw it way up in the air, yeah, it's likely going to come down on edge, but you'd be able to do that with just about any disc. The thing with this is whenever you throw it on just an anhyzer angle, stock Annie angle, as a golf shot, it's fighting out every single time. You can count on this disc to be able to do that. And, even if you turn your shot over just a little bit, it's going to fight back out of it. It's kind of that autocorrect feature that a lot of players really like leaning on this style disc exactly for that reason. Now, when thrown full power, it did fly fairly straighter than typical, and then it started having that good, consistent forward pushing fade. It still showed no signs of flipping up or turning over, for that matter, just at all. It showed no signs of flip, that +1 turn rating, again, kicking in even when throwing it close to full power. This thing just doesn't want to turn over at all. You're going to have to beat the ever-loving tar out of this thing for a long time before it's ever going to try to turn over. Now, I'm throwing the Toro in Star Plastic. It does come in a multitude of other plastics, and that's one good thing about this disc is that no matter what plastic you get, typically the flights are going to be very, very similar, if not just outright the same. It doesn't really have too many differences on, different plastic runs or just from run to run within the same plastic type. This thing is fairly consistent across the board, which is something that is highly sought after. Meaning in the summer months, you can get the premium plastics and get out there. And then once the winter months roll around, you can grab an R Pro Toro and count on it still having the same flight, but having the added benefits of better grip and more a soft feeling plastic in the colder months. Now, I'm going to say that the Toro is arguably more overstable than the Zone, definitely more overstable than something like a Harp, or a lot of those other, typical overstable forehand approach disc. This thing is going to be really beefy compared to those, but it's still right along the same lines, just a little bit more. Now, I'm going to recommend this disc for the intermediate level player and above. It's probably just a little bit too much for that, brand new beginner level player with a really low arm speed. Now, the moment you're starting to refine, your forehand touch, things like that around the green, or you start getting a little more power on your throws, then you're going to be able to start utilizing a disc like the Toro. Now, the advanced level player is going to be able to tap into all of the different, finesse shots that you can do with something like this, being able to force over anhyzer on a forehand, getting a long panning anhyzer shot, or flex shots, things of that nature. Or if you just need a true, just dialed and zeroed in approach disc for those forehands coming into greens, look no further than the Toro. This thing is going to be able to do all of that and then some. If you want a Toro for yourself, click the link in the description of this video to head over to reaperdisc.com to grab one there. You can also find any other disc you might be looking for, or any of the awesome apparel that we have, like this shirt that I'm wearing right now. Follow us on social media at ReaperDisc, that way you're kept up to date with all of our product restocks and exclusive new drops. Click the subscribe button, that way you can keep up with all of the content that we're doing, and if you want to be the first to know about it, go ahead and ring that notification bell. It doesn't cost you anything, and you're kept in the loop every time we post something new. Again, I'm Christian with Reaper Discs, and I'll see you guys in the next video.